Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View. This Sunday morning, could this be the best transfer window that Celtic ever had? Could it possibly be Brendan Rodgers' dream transfer window? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to talk about players one player that we know that's definitely coming in, and we're going to talk about some other players that I think could come in if Brendan Rodgers was to get his ideal way. Make sure that you give the video a thumbs up, as it does help with the algorithm. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure that you do. And also, if you're looking for anything off of Amazon today, click onto the link through here and head to the Amazon from that page there. Anyway, this could be potentially a hard transfer window as it comes to Celtic at this time of year. But if Brendan Rodgers was to get the following players in, I think it would be an absolutely fantastic window for him. With Joe Hart coming up to the end of his time at Celtic and Celtic not entering into talks with him at the moment, it could be an ideal time for Brendan Rodgers to try and get in another goalkeeper. We know that we have been linked with a player from Liverpool. And I think getting him in, when you look at his stats, and he's not had a lot of time, but when the summer transfer window closed in September 2023, it was suggested that Celtic were keen to sign the Liverpool number 2. And that would be would he be an ideal replacement for him? He is 6'2". He's got the good potential there. For me, I'm always wanting to try and get players that have got that bit of experience. But when you look at it in the past, we brought in Fraser Foster, who wasn't playing first team football, and he played absolutely tremendous for Celtic. The fact that he's about 10 years younger than Joe Hart would suggest that it could be a good one for Celtic to get in through the door. At 25-year-old, he's a lot younger than the keepers that we have at the moment at Celtic, and he could be first choice for years to come, which is what you really want. So will we go for the number 2 from Liverpool? Will we go for Colm? I don't know. It would be ideal if we did get a keeper in, but I think that was Brendan Rodgers' preferred choice, and it could be the summertime that we would have to wait for that. But if it was to happen at this window, it would be fantastic. Now, one player that I think needs to stay at Celtic is obviously Alistair Johnston. I think Alistair Johnston's got a great future at Celtic. He has been dipped in form this season. He was injured at the beginning of the season. But at right back, there's no one that can take over him at Celtic just now, and I think the Canadian international has just started 18. He's created a lot of chances. When you look at him as a player for Celtic at the back, he's one that he performed well last season. You've got to remember he did just come in at this time. He's only been at the club a year now. He did come in just in the January after the World Cup, and he had a fantastic World Cup with Canada. Now, another player that should stay at Celtic, and Celtic need to keep a hold of him for a good few years yet, is Cameron Carter-Vickers, the USA international. Will put his injury woes behind him that he's had this season, and hopefully he'll crack on and have a strong second half of the season. He's a player that he will leave Celtic at some point, but we need to make sure that we keep him this January transfer window at Celtic. Now, one player that's probably the most improved in the squad, and for me, I think we'll go for Celtic's player of the season as it stands just now. If you were calling the shots for player of the season already, this player has surpassed anything that anyone expected of him, and that's Liam Scales. And I think Liam Scales is having a fantastic season. He's one player that is highly improved. We're going to take this time. We're 6 months into Brendan Rodgers' term back at Celtic, and you say, have players improved under him? Well, Liam Scales comes under that bracket. Liam Scales that couldn't get near the team under Ange Postecoglou came in, and we all know the reasons that he came in. But his impressive displays this season after being on loan at Aberdeen last season, it's difficult to drop him now. And I think that's one player that Celtic really need to make sure that they keep. Now, a transfer into Celtic that has been suggested by the media after his time up at Dundee is Owen Beck on loan to the end of the season. But I don't think that's ever going to happen. But with Greg Taylor, not having the best of seasons, would Owen Beck be your ideal? I think if you could get him in on loan, it might give Greg Taylor that little kick up the bum that he needs. Greg Taylor's done that over the last couple of seasons. Bernabé's came in. I think Bernabé is a player that really needs to be put out on loan if he's going to get any game time. Or sold, because let's face it, he's obviously not good enough to displace Greg Taylor. So take from that we want is Owen Beck the type of player we could get in. It would be an ideal situation if we'd managed to get the two players from Liverpool. With Brendan Rodgers' close relationship with the pool, it would be an interesting one to get in. But it is just speculation, and I understand that Liverpool took him back down from Dundee as they want to keep him under wraps. Now, another player that he's never going to leave Celtic, is he? He's Mr. Celtic himself. Callum McGregor, he will remain an important figure under Brendan Rodgers. He's the captain of the club. And I think a lot of people give Callum a little bit of a hard time, and they think that he drops in form and stuff. He gets man-marked a lot in games. It's imperative that he comes back the second half of the season and is on fire, because when he's on fire and the team plays, and you get Rio Hatate back in that team, you know, they're going to be an interesting second half to the season. Rio Hatate is one player that needs to stay at Celtic this transfer window. I think it'll be a success if we do that. I can't see him going anywhere. He's at the Asia Cup. He's not going to be sold during the Asia Cup or when he gets back. So in the middle of the park, I think Rio Hatate will still be there. Matt O'Reilly, there's a lot of speculation about Matt O'Reilly over the last couple of months, but Matt O'Reilly, he is important to us, and he will not be sold. And he's basically been asked, is he happy at Celtic? Of course he is. He's having a fantastic. He's one player. He's another player that's improved under the current manager, Brendan Rodgers. Now, one player that is coming into Celtic, if Celtic will agree the £200,000 that's alleged that they want more. It's typical Celtic, isn't it? We lost out on a striker in the summer due to a sum of around about 200,000. But Nico Khan, is coming into Celtic by the looks of it. He will be announced this week. The German player will move to Celtic for a deal just under $3 million. It's been suggested this morning that the Germans want $3 million for him. Celtic want to pay $2.8 million. It's unbelievable. But if he comes in, we wish him all the best, and we'll back him like we back every Celtic player to the hilt. And we'll hope that he manages to have a fantastic career. I understand he's going to get a 4.5-year deal at Celtic when he puts pen to paper this week. He is left-footed, and it'll be interesting to see if he walks straight into that first team. Now, another player that we really need to keep this transfer window is obviously Kyogo Furuhashi. He isn't away with the national team, which could lead to speculation over the next couple of weeks that he could be sold, but I don't think he will be. I think his form this season might have put some teams off. And let's face it, if anyone was going to come in for him, they might have come in for him last summer. That didn't happen. But at 28-year-olds, I think he's still got a few years left in him at Celtic. Celtic need to bring in another striker. And the biggest worry then is bringing in a striker that's going to play number 2. I've spoken about it before. Does Brendan Rodgers then change the formation to try and accommodate 2 strikers? Or does he bring in a striker that's going to play as a winger? Or a winger that can also play as a striker, Nicholas Khan, which is an interesting one. So that wouldn't surprise me at all, since Nico can play as a main forward and he can also play on both wings. So nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I think this is why Brendan Rodgers wants Nico in the door. It will help him in that department all round. Lewis Palmer, another player, fantastic this season. He obviously came in the summer and with big aspirations to move to Spain and play his football career in Spain. He, for me, is one player that we need to get more on the ball. He needs to get more game time. And he's had a fantastic first half of the season. He was kind of thrown in when people were injured. But let's face it, Palma on the wing, he's been sublime, hasn't he? He's been absolutely fantastic. The top end of the pitch, if he just slows his game down a little bit and gets his passing a bit more accurate, he's going to be right up there. He's one of the biggest players. He's a big asset for Celtic, and he's one player that we do need to make sure that we keep. So, players coming into the club, I definitely think if we could get the Liverpool goalkeeper in, I've been kind of a bit reluctant to go for him in the past because he wasn't getting any game time at Liverpool, but I think it would be Brendan Rodgers' ideal choice. Remember, this is what I'm thinking could be Brendan Rodgers' ideal transfer window. If we can get the Liverpool keeper in, that would be fantastic for him. He's a long-term admirer. If we could then get Beck in, I think the manager would love to get Beck in, even on loan to the end of the season. Callum McGregor, he is going nowhere. Rio Hatate is going nowhere. Matt O'Reilly, he is going nowhere. Nicholas Khan, he is coming into Celtic. He can play as a forward and a winger. So that covers a little bit of both bases for that one. And I think if Brendan Rodgers would manage to keep hold of Lewis Palmer, Kyogo Furuhashi, it could be the perfect transfer window for him. When you look at the squad as a whole, Alexandro Bernabe, Kobayashi, Gustav Lagerbielke. I mean, I don't know what's happened with the Gustav, but it looks like Gustav will be put out on loan. Kobayashi, well, What about him and Bernaby? Where do they fit into the back four? They don't. It's as simple as that. Celtic need to get these players moved on. And then it comes the David Turnbull question, the big question, the David Turnbull question. Do we keep a hold of him till the end of the season? He does have some goals in him, and let him go for absolutely nothing. Nothing in particular. Let's say it again. Ooh. Tell me the lyrics of that song if you can. Anyway, David Turnbull, do we sell him in this window just to get some money in for him? James McCarthy, stealing a wage at Celtic. Tomoki Iwata has been injured far too much, but he will be kept. And when you look at James McCarthy, the wages he's on, James, just take the money and run now. Just do us all a favour. And then when you look at the forwards, Mikey Johnson question, the Mikey Johnson one. Does Mikey Johnson move on in this window? He wants to pledge his future to Celtic, but he's not been offered that new contract at Celtic as yet. The manager did throw the gauntlet down to Mikey Johnson at the beginning of the season and said, do your talking on the pitch and see if you can come up with the goods to get offered that new contract. I've got a funny feeling that Mikey Johnson will be offered a new contract purely for the Scottish contingent. I know that he's pledged his allegiance to Ireland, but when it comes to UEFA and the UEFA Champions League, he does come under as being Scottish, as coming through the club's ranks. And then there's the one that didn't get a game for Australia in their first game in the Asia Cup. I didn't expect him to start the game. He was called up late to the squad, and that is Marco Tilio. He's a player that's made noises about going back to Australia to get some game time. He's obviously unhappy at his spell at Celtic, but he did come in. He did come into Celtic injured, so I think it is a bit of a brass neck for him to say that he's unhappy with his time at Celtic, but he did come in injured. It did take him a lot of time to get fit. He even trained with the B team and played a game with the B team to get his fitness up. He needs to do his talking on the pitch. If he wants to prove that he is the player that he thinks he is, he needs to definitely do his talking on the pitch. So tell me what you think about the ins and outs. What would be your perfect transfer window for Brendan Rodgers? What do you think about them? Tell me what you think about it in the comments. On that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans all around the world.
Aye, subscribe to One Celtic Fans View. Hail.
See you later.
Lit. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the